Peace, peace. Okay. Saladin, peace. 793rd, peace. Crimson, you are new. Let me know who you are, what you're about. A very, 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 very busy day. So even when I finish this class, there's a lot of work that I have yet to do. So, with that mentality, we will continue. Korende Ja King Allah from Divine Seed. Okay, that's peace. Not a regular in the class, so that you was online, Lord, so jumped out. All are welcome. All are welcome. Just like if you were in the streets and you happen to walk past the law school in Mecca and you walked in, you don't need to be a regular. I am well groomed in dealing with the walk-in individual. And as you come in the name of Allah, then we all are brethren, family in some type of way. We ought to be. So it is no problem. And just like in my classroom, you come through and you stay as long as you want. As long as you can. As long as you're wishing. Ask whatever questions need to be asked so that you get some use out of this forum of a classroom that I'm sharing. Peace-wise, you. In this class, political. Actually, wasn't me. It was Day's son. He wanted to bring this class to a law school, and he knew that I could teach it. My enlightener knowledge me was already teaching me and grooming me to be a teacher, as well as Savior knowledge. So, Day's son came with the title, Political Education and Civilization Enrichment. That's right. Knowledge me. He is my enlightener. All right. So, when we had thought about that political education was how to deal with the outside world. Right? That's peace, Crim. Right? That's peace. Let me get your name because I'm right. Korende. Hope I'm saying that right. You know, I see the accent. I'm trying to get the accent right. Yeah. Ah, okay. 99 to 2000. So you've had the knowledge quite a while. Quite a while. Right? And 1999 was my first show and prove. Okay. Now that's peace. I like getting that right. You know what I mean? One of the greatest forms of respect you can show someone is to get their name right. You know what I mean? And even if you can't, put in the effort to respect it. You know what I mean? To try to get it right. You know what I mean? There's always language barriers, and people come with different dialects from different countries, and may not always be able to pronounce a name. My name is Sunez. You know, it's a created name, and it has the Spanish accents with the ñ sound. So a lot of elders, a lot of gods, you know, they don't always say it that way, the way that I say it. You know, so it's the way that you say it that convey the sincerity, even if they don't say it correctly. You know, it's a big deal. We put a lot of investment to create the name that will represent what we are, what we think, and what we intend to be, what we intend to share with everyone. You know, a righteous name is a big deal. Saladin said, peace, find a mentor, someone whose light you admire, that's knowledge, someone doesn't mind sharing. You bring whatever they teach, born, into your own life. Today's something very interesting. Very interesting. I see it. I understand where it's going. Divine truth, Allah, peace of the gods and earths, and all civilized people, he says. When you teach and you conduct a course that is free to the people at Allah's school in Mecca, you don't always get the civilized people. We prepare for all the human families, you know what I mean? Even the humans that aren't really part of any family. It's funny, right? We say we teach all the human families, but most of the people that we teach, they're not, that's the whole point. And they're not part of any family. You know what I mean? And I always say that with the knowledge of self doesn't make you part of any family. It just means that you're a group that knows and upholds or shares a fact that very little of the world bears witness to, or hasn't even had a chance, you know, to bear witness to it. When we deal with this knowledge, the way that we conduct ourselves with integrity, the way we conduct ourselves with honor, with principles, the way we can outline those principles in supreme math, that's going to be what makes us a family. That's what's going to thicken, you know, the bonds that are not blood. You know what I mean? That's what's going to thicken, you know? It may not be blood, but that'll what produce the blood, you know? The devil dilutes the blood, right? In the grafting process. And what do? You know what I mean? Find ways to strengthen that blood. You know what I mean? Thicken the blood by merging the original people, right? You know? You know, people so concerned about the way you're treated that you forget how you should be treating people. You know what I mean? Forget you're the true and living God. responsible for all the human families. You know what I mean? See all this stuff about stop Asian hate, you know? And now, instead of saying, yeah, that's true, man, you know what I mean? I'm not killing any Asians, you know what I mean? But am I adding on? Like, am I ignorant to these original people? Do I even bear witness that they're original people? There's a beginning there, right? Do you know that? You have knowledge of self. Do you know that the Asians are original people? They are also original people. And now that you know that, what comes next? Right? Are you derogatory? Are you casually dismissive? How are you to the Asian people? So many people are quick to think about relationships, even though they got the knowledge as the true and living God. It's fine. You know, you want to be 85, blind, deaf, and dumb. You want to be like them. You better make yourself stupider because they don't know and you know. So now, if you want to behave like them, you got to be stupider. You got to make yourself stupid. You're the true and living God, responsible for all the human family, all things, all living things, all life. You don't like roaches? You're still responsible for all of them. Yeah, you are. So you better kill them good. Keep them where they belong, right? In other words, you make these decisions, though. I'm saying, though, is that as a true and living God, political education, how do we deal with the outside world? Is not how do we react like, oh, these people treat me or the group that I am associating with the most. You know, because when it gets real, do you look at yourself as, I have knowledge of self, I'm God, but I will judge factors as an African American. I'm the true and living God. When it gets real, I'm going to judge things only as a Puerto Rican. Hey, you fucked up. You fucked up this knowledge. You know what I mean? You watch my work. You see me tell you about hip hop and tell you about what Puerto Ricans got, how they get disgraced, how they were maligned, shunned, kept away. These are facts of documentation. But when you react to situations, are you reacting as I, a Puerto Rican, or is you reacting as I'm the true and living God? You see? The true and living God, how do we conduct ourselves to all the human families and what is right just for all the human families? See? Do I conduct myself in a manner that causes derision, division, devilishment, promoted degradation of a said people or group? And so then you say, oh man, you know, this Stop Asian Hate, that's blowing up even better and more respect and integrity than Black Lives Matter or something like that. You know what I mean? And mind you, look, I could do it. Is there a saying for brown people? Right? Is there sayings out there for original Mexicans that get slaved by police or Puerto Ricans, right? Don't pick the spicks. You know what I mean? Don't drown the browns. I made some up, though. We could use those, though. Don't pick the spicks. I mean pickaxe, though. You know what I'm saying? That's why I had to do the, you know what I mean? Don't pick the spicks. You know what I mean? Don't sick the spicks. Whatever, right? My point is that you look at things like the true and living God. You know what I mean? They go, oh, I saw countless on the online. I saw countless times online, right? I get it. You know why? Quatis, I see that. I see some other things everybody wrote, but I saw Quatis said, God getting heated. Let me tell you why I get heated, right? If you notice, I get heated though when people are spoken to, whether in my classroom or I see things that I've already taught right in front of you and it still gets neglected. That's one thing I will, But in outside life, I like to share my disappointment. I like to share my disappointment when I see people come in the name of Allah and act like a regular human, a regular African American, a regular Puerto Rican, a regular Mexican, whatever the fuck it is. You know what I mean? They say stop Asian hate. The first thing that I see people coming in the name online doing is saying, well, they not really down with us though. So it sound like the Jews before the Holocaust. Hashtag me only thinking. You know what I mean? Me only. That's the hashtag for a lot of the niggas. Me only. You know? Me only. They killing all those not Moors. They're killing all those gypsies. Nah, those gypsies, they're, got black blood and all. I don't care. You know what I mean? They're killing these ethnics over here. They killed all the blacks and shit. Nah, but the Jews, they go, you know what? It's not us though. It's all good. Got nothing to do with us though. And other people wasn't with us anyway, and we don't mess with them. That's what it means though when they say injustice somewhere is an injustice to everywhere and everyone. You know what I mean? When I see a bulk of original people, I understand my degrees. I don't say that those people can't be taught and they're not with us. I tell them, I think we haven't taught those people. I find it embarrassing that people will criticize and say these Asians, these, this, that, with the name, with the flag, and they haven't taught one Asian person ever. They haven't taught one Asian person, not one. They ain't met one. They ain't never told them they was original. They wouldn't even know how to build on it because they got themselves thinking that they're not because they don't see any other Asians there. You know what I'm saying? They don't want to deal with this though, so they got out of the loop. Oh, that's how it goes, right? It's not about the science of the genetics and the reality of the history and the dispersal of these original people over generations and generations, producing different phenotypes with the same original genetics, and then different from the grafted that was selectively grafted and weakened and blood thinned to make devil that was what so weak that it was nearly always prone to wickedness and would produce something that would be unalike and rule us with that unlike nature. Oh no, you got other people in that group too. Right. I see what you're saying. So you got three groups. You got the original, you got the devil, and you got the almost original. Because you teach them, they don't want to deal with the knowledge. And all I see is people that don't know how to teach. People that don't know cultures. You know? And that's what it is. So don't get caught up though in how you're treated. Your emotional state and your reality and how you see people are treated though isn't the answer to the knowledge itself. It might be the answer to how you organize action on the daily. It might be the answer on how you put together community groups that can make and bring results immediately. But if you're trying to equate that to the knowledge of self and who ought to get taught and who ought to get treated like they're actually in the degrees and act like they're not in the degrees in that certain way, then now misteaching. You're doing a convenient thing. And you know it's good because you only got a certain amount of time on this planet. So you could teach in your weak, shitty way and only reach the people that was around, people that like rap. It's easy to teach. It's easy to teach people that like the raps, man. It's easy to teach people that have been beat by police. It's easy to teach people around the way who see things the way you see it. Now, I know a lot of people, there's a lot of 5% that might be watching this and they would go, oh, yeah, you know, the guy, he's saying this and that. And I'm not saying one is the other, but there's a new difficulty that people aren't ready for. Because if you want to open your mouth on the social media and say, oh, fly shit, these people deserve it, these people aren't even with, these aren't that, they are also original people. You don't like that they get reverence a little faster than the black man? That they don't get ignored completely like the brown man? Welcome to oppression. It's all different. It's all different. It's all different to make us think that we are all different. See that? Scott degree in the 114. That's how you build. That's how you see the lesson. Why does the devil call our people African? African is not a bad term. It is the concept of any term being used exclusionary, putting limits on the reality of who is the original man and the scope of the original people. Before any person that's coming in the name of Allah tells you what these people do or don't do, what is the cure that the father and all of his firstborn and his firstborn students that become my teachers, what did they teach? The cure is not to deal with your own. The cure was what? To collect your own and then teach everyone else. Teach all the human families that will take this teaching. And see, people, I feel like if you're a five, you shouldn't even have a commentary about Asians. If you haven't even taught one, you haven't even met one. You don't know any Asian culture. You don't know the excellence of how they're even original. You just see, all you're seeing is menace to society and saying, good. You know what I mean? And now you're Lawrence Tate being disrespected at every turn. That's every brother out there is Lawrence Tate. You know what I mean? They want to talk a lot. But in their mind, though, it's always, I'm Lawrence Tate. That's it. I don't like the way I'm treated at this. What? See it from all angles. When I started to really, when I started to go to Harlem regularly to get this knowledge, on this other side of Harlem that wasn't Spanish Harlem, I didn't just teach every week there. I lived there. I was there all the time. I lived there as much as any person that slept there. And even many, for even a year or two, I slept there, right? Oh, dog. Yeah, I forgot the character's name. You know what I mean? All I know is what you said about my mama, right? That's all I remember. Instead of what I'm saying, instead of what I feel sorry for your mama, is I feel sorry for your enlightener. That they taught you so sloppy that you could just do what everybody else does. Well, they don't do nothing for us, though, so F them. You know what? Let me tell you something. Since I've had this knowledge, right? There's a small, nearly tiny 0.001% of Puerto Ricans that have supported the way of life that I live. I'm not even talking about family. Because they support now because they see the life that I live. Did I say, oh, look, those people, this and that, I'm just going to teach, right? Nah, that's not how it works. The reactions of a group of people that is not right and exact doesn't necessarily mean that they are not right and exact. It means that they're 85, blind, deaf, and dumb, don't know the origins of their world, don't know who the true and living God is. I was thoroughly embarrassed. I look at some of the gods, some of my students, and I see other people that are supposedly God talking on their pages. I don't. Oh man, I don't really have time for all this back and forth because I don't have time back and forth to get on the Facebook. You know what I mean? It's enough that I get into arguments though because I know it'll help me with my writing. You know what I mean? About Biggie's commercialism and all this kind of stuff. Diddy's hagiography. You know, and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And I'll get it to there because, you know, honestly, it's going to refine some of the stuff I have. It'll develop my arguments. You know what I mean? But there's no argument there. I won't hear it. I won't hear how a certain group of people don't support the original people and this and that because you don't know it from all angles. These people don't even know what it's like, though, when your own actual ethnicity doesn't support. You know what I mean? So what you going to say? Right? You look at the trolls. You look at the trolls that have commonly infested the pages or the videos of clips that I've taught. They fall into two categories. It's people that hate that I'm so light-skinned or Puerto Rican that I shouldn't be the one teaching. They don't bear witness that in their definition of what is black, I'm not black. Then you got the other group that they may not necessarily deny that I'm original, but because my ethnicity is not one that has been supportive of them. In other words, people are just making decisions based on their sob stories. Sob stories. Imagine if we taught like that. Imagine if we taught the human families like that. I wouldn't teach a Brooklyn nigga, black or brown. Right? I wouldn't teach a whole borough. I'd leave them all to be. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's a joke. You know what I mean? There's a time though where, like, if you was really teaching, you'd be like, listen, you know, there's proof that the Asian people, you know, they are oppressed. You know what I mean? And if they're not oppressed, they have through history been repressed. And get to know your damn history of original peoples. It's a book, right? Just start off, right? Get the name exactly. Excellent starting book. Let me get the title of it because I don't want to miss. The Making of Asian America, A History by Erica Lee. Right? Right? Nothing, nothing's worse than American slavery. What the original people went through. And yet, when you read about the history of the Asians, you learn about the coolies. You learn about at certain moments in history, not for as prolonged, and that's why it's never as worse as slavery of the so-called African American. But their death rates were actually higher. So they was on those ships dying at the same rate, showing you that even if they abolished slavery, they still could carry it out. Do you know why? Do you know the only difference between often groups of original people and the African American is that the African American is taught to be defined by his oppression. And the only difference is that original people are taught that that was an experience that you got out of. So even as so every next rape, every next pillage, every next bloodsuck is a singular experience. And teaching original people that are not African American, it's about showing them, look, it's part of a continuum. It's part of a continuum. You are continuing to be oppressed, and it is by design that you are oppressed on certain levels and manipulated in different ways and in lesser ways. That you are the fallback to oppress. Once we finish with this top, we have a hierarchy. Isn't that what a caste system is? See, we learn caste system the wrong way. We keep talking about who gets more and more as you go up. But after a certain level, nobody's getting anything. So it's based on who gets taken from more, who gets treated worse. This caste system is based also on who gets hurt the most. In other words, it's all about what you get. You either get goods, access to goods, or you are what? If everybody's deprived, then that means that how do you define the caste system on the lower levels? It's about who gets the most hell. And they're all varying qualities. There's all ways to stop. And one of those ways is the mental. Original people, for the most part throughout the world, are taught that these are experiences, though, and you got out of it. The Dominicans, you went through slavery. You know they did. They act like they don't, right? You know why? Because they are taught that they got out of a situation. So think about it. You brothers that have gone through the interior cipher, right? You've been locked in the belly of the beast, right? You've acclimated, you've succeeded, you got out and you got your job. You know what I mean? You may have built a family, whatever you're doing, though. You don't wake up and say, all I am is a prisoner. You know what I mean? Number 05 or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Fish kill. Now you don't say that. You remind yourself that you may have been traumatized, you may have dealt with things, you have had great, but been taking many steps back, but it's an experience that you're working your way out of. But you are not that. That's for the most of the original people throughout the world. that you see coming to America, how they're treated in comparison to the African American. But not the African American, though. He is that thing. He is that slave. He is a slave that we have allowed to become a citizen. Until he starts recognizing that's the main difference, and that's the only difference. He'll stop talking about all this physical shit and all this other thing. You know what I mean? He'll start judging and saying that we're the only ones that are oppressed and this like that. Start looking at things as far as if we're to unite, then you have to go out there and teach all the original people the levels by which they're oppressed. And people will make their decisions. Yeah, you know, like, yeah. If people live a decent life, it's always going to be an easier decision not to deal with knowledge or insight that goes against the status quo. Meaning that they would have to change their life to accommodate this new knowledge. So it's always going to be harder to teach someone like that. You think it's going to be harder to teach some Chinese brother that lives like a hipster, right? Might even have a good enough career that he's actually one of those new gentrifiers. And you're going to teach him this knowledge. And for that, I say good luck. You know what I mean? But you see the flaw in that thinking. The flaw in that thinking, though, is that you're defining them by what they become and not what they are. See? And the flaw in that is because the examples that we have of so-called Asians that aren't right and exact with us is always an adult. We don't teach adults. We don't teach adults. I got family members I love, though, and they think pork is a quality. It's like a human quality. I got to think it that way. You know what I mean? Shit smells like piss, but it's a human quality. You know what I mean? Like if they didn't eat it, though, they lack a human quality, though. Like it's like me saying, you know what, tomorrow I'm going to delete all of my charisma, all of it, though, in the written word, in the spoken word, in my interactions. You know what I mean? Somebody speaks, man, the fucking pork is a character. It's a character trait. You know what I mean? You see their harmony, it'll be, you know, I'm a fun-loving guy. You know what I mean? I'm pork. I am this. You know what I mean? I love to take, you know, rides in the park. I love to listen to jazz, salsa, and I am pork. You know what I mean? It's part of their fucking character, you know, traits. You know what I mean? It's not who we teaching. Everybody bring up reasons why these particular original people are no good. You can't teach them. And they keep talking about adults that have made the decisions. That have made decisions, though, that they thought were easier for their family, just like they stuck with the religions that they were dealing with that were easy for their family. Don't study any history to see how they could deal with the youth. You know that most of the Latino history, especially in the Caribbean, is based off a Moorish legacy where Spain finally ousted the Moors that civilized them after 700 years and ousted them under the guise that they would get rid of all their religion. If not, then they would get rid of you. That's what the Spanish Inquisition was. Even in Spain, they don't even like to talk about their Moorish roots. Last I checked, Spain, they wasn't just hanging people for having a religion. I'm sure that they allow some Muslims to live there and they do their own thing. They might not be popular, right? The conditioning. If you don't know the conditioning, the experiences of a people, you know what I mean? Then all of your commentary, and much of your commentary, though, is only going to be judging the characters of individuals that have already grown. And all of us, the majority of us, though, have made decisions to be the original man, the true and living God, because we realize who the devil was first. And every time you think about not teaching a group of people, you go think back and remember that the reason you got this knowledge, though, wasn't the positivity and the love that the Father gave, but was also because of the most negative trait, negative connotation, negative title of truth that was given to that other man that was doing things just as he is labeled. You was the victim of devilishment, and you knew there had to be something else. You developed a healthy suspension of belief that led you to say, that's wrong, something else is going to be right. And then now another group of people is in the wrong, and when something else is done wrong to them, you say, well, good riddance. They weren't really okay. You're treating people like animals, you know what I mean? Not like people. You know what I mean? You thought that they was going to do devilishment against Asians and that it was going to make you feel, was it going to make you feel good if they do everything that they do to the Asians that they do to you? When, if you're a thinking man and know these degrees, you know that there's no way that's going to happen. They might even go try to find justice. You know what I mean? Got to see what's alike and not what's unalike. That's why the unalike attract. When they made devil, though, the unalike attract. And in our responses to things, we attract our insight or our so-called build to the unalike. So when we do the knowledge, are we destroying with it or are we building? Knowledge build. Right? Are we the ruler or are we ruled? That's too real. Sunez just saying all that shit because he loved Kung Fu. Right? Sunez loved himself some Kung Fu and some jasmine green tea. And Baji Chu. You know what I mean? I was even with the God. God brought some tiger bone. I even have developed a threshold for enjoyment of the tiger bone. That's why he's saying this shit. Right? Yeah. It's a funny world, man. Every time a brother would do something stupid or do something bloodsuck, they go, yeah, this is our time to teach, though, right? You get bloodsuckers wearing the universal flag. They go, yeah, well, you know, everybody knows them, so it's time to teach. We can use that as a teaching tool. Asians go through some hell. It's the perfect time to see him. Well, you thought you was, you thought you was white? You thought you was all right? Nah. You know what I mean? Throughout history, if they blame something on Asians, they start killing them. Go do the analysis of history. You know what I mean? Oh, man, that's too bad, 793. I love me some downtown 101 herbs. I love me some Baji, though. All right. All right, Moran is over. Saladin said, how can what that dude did to the 8 Asian people not be considered racist? Media is always covering for him. Oh, yeah, of course. You know what I mean? See, in that similarity is how you go teach. You know what I mean? Because there's going to have to become a time, though, where we can use that, but there has to become a time, though, where we could teach this knowledge. And it's based on, the appeal will be based to the youth on who we are and what greatness we could achieve, as opposed to, you're the true and living God because they're the devil. You see what I'm saying? That's how we're teaching. That's not going to be good enough one day. And with people that live a decent, good life, you know what I mean? You are not going to ruin their life by telling that shit. You know? Quatis, it makes you wonder what lessons are really being absorbed with people talking like that. Yeah, I wonder too. I wonder too. You know, I wonder too. Quatis, you said knowledge build, all being born to born. I'm reading the book of Luke, the biography of Luther Campbell. Not exactly the first hip-hop autobiography I would have in mind, but all right. It is interesting because it relates to today's degree. He was a builder of leisure activity, which has obvious pitfalls, but in reading how he highlighted the steps of the why, what, and how he would build were very revealing. It goes to show why this is a very important degree. It is hard to say it is the most important because they all add such value, but this one is an accumulated recognition, knowledge of the process build of bringing something into existence that would impact reality. Yeah, this piece, I make jokes, because I don't think his music is totally overrated, but I would imagine that the pursuits that he went through are intriguing. I think I have that book, but I collected it more as like just to have it. I didn't intend to read it anytime soon. There's so many other books, musical biographies that I would put ahead of that. But very interesting. I'll say this though. Put it that way though, it is pretty interesting. Good build though, Quatis. Good build. You have a real gift for concentrating it into very useful sentences. You also said, peace, knowledge, Allah. Appreciate you. Quatis, you also said, I approach it by asking the question, what must I become to design a life? What must I become to design a life? What skills do I need to make progress in my career? What are some new skills I can develop that I wasn't aware of? These are questions that stretch and can never be quenched. And I see it being the process of creation intelligently guided. Always doing the knowledge of how to build will always get you in an ever-born state. It's very reflective degree, Quatis continues. It begs the question, what has been built around this? What have I built? What are those impacts of those constructs? A bit humbling, though it sounds epic, and it is, because it is to build, to erect that which impacts existence, be it self or other beings. When righteously built, it increases the balance we all thirst to, for, and thrive on. Yeah. Absolutely. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. We lose some of the idealism. And that's why you have to teach the babies, because how would you teach the Asian babies? You know what I mean? How would you teach children? You know what I mean? Like, not all things, not all youth that are mistaught are uncivilized. You know what I mean? Or with the lack of ability to survive or even thrive. You know what I mean? You know, how many Chinese are really taught about their culture? You know what I mean? The legacy that they have in the martial arts, the legacy that they have in ruling, the legacy that they have in empire building. You know what I mean? Have we as original people started to do the research and connect? Well, we said everything starts in Africa and we got these ancient African civilizations, but how does it connect to all the other original people? We haven't even done that. And that's why people don't know that they're all original. Because all we see is the beginning and then white people and then other people in the middle. So we give them beginnings we don't care about. When it's not really beginnings, it's connections. You see, we have to change the way we think. You know what I mean? A poor righteous teacher is one who is thinking what he will share, not making decisions based on the poor part. You make reactive decisions about who gets treated how, stuff. You're still making decisions about how they treat us. When I deal with this knowledge of self, I remind myself not to make decisions based on how they treat us. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that I did enough research to know that we're all treated horribly. Not terrible, okay. No. We've all been treated and all continue to be treated horribly. Devastatingly horrible. So figure out how poor you'll be. In other words, how much sacrifice you will make to teach righteousness, to share, teach, share is teach, share righteousness. What is right? You go to an Asian though, or you can tell them no. What can you tell them? I'll tell you what most people will tell them. You know, the first one of y'all look like me instead. That's all you got. That's all you got, because that's all what was in the literature. You've made no connective tissue. You've studied nothing about Chinese culture. You'll say, oh, the martial arts started with Africans because there was this drawings and shit like that. Giving no respect to the fact that they preserved it, that these people are the ones that have it, that they took it to another level. Nothing. When we say they are original people, how does that all connect? We've done no research. And all we can teach other people that aren't of our own immediate ethnicity is, y'all know that the first one of y'all look like me. And they're supposed to submit. And that's a teaching of bowing down. There's no connective tissue. You've taught that original man none of his own supremacy. You know what I mean? But that he should submit, right, to a familial, a relative, a distant cousin bloodline of supremacy. And I could talk, though. I could talk my shit because I've taught Asians. And that kind of bullshit is the first thing I tell them that it's not. You know what I mean? You're not the original man, though, because we keep finding some Buddha that looks like LeBron. You know what I mean? And he don't look like you with your slanted eyes and yellow skin. That's poor research to that man's connections of originality. It's missing so much in the equation here. It's missing the migrations that and the years and hundreds of generations that they spent on different places after they migrated from that original root and what they built at that root. All these different roots that the Egyptian mystery school system's intent was to try to unify again. But the research is low and it's slow and it's minimal. And all we get is, well, you know, white people went to the Egyptian mystery school system and we taught them all that. Because that's where George James started. And that all these scholars, they wrote books just so they could say, you know, white people, we started shit too. That's poor. That's poor if it's left there after all these years? How old is that damn book? That's what Surdom wanted people to finish, right? These great scholars like Diop, Surdom, they gave you their thesis, but they also told you that was their beginning. This is what they did. That wasn't the end. And be honest with yourself and know that you don't know any Asian people. You've never built with any Asian people. You know? No, you got friends though, but you never say, yo, you know who the original man is? You know what I mean? But you got lots of builds about how Asiatic doesn't mean them. Exclusionary builds, how Asiatic doesn't mean them. It just means your ass. Right? You know, us niggas that rap, you know what I mean? Niggas that rap. Y'all niggas don't rap. Shit not about you. 120 is about the niggas that rap. Fucking teaching here. See that? And anybody that's on this damn page, if you don't rap, if you're not one of them niggas that rap, then this shit is not for you. That's the way you're teaching. Baby style. Baby style. You know what I mean? Baby. You know what I mean? Cops didn't beat you up inside your head. You don't know what that's like. You know, people just made fun of you, though. They make fun of everybody. You know what I mean? You got slanty eyes, though. You got a funny nose. Everybody gets made fun of. Right? Now, he's not the original man. Everybody get made fun of. You know what I mean? Or he got scared because I'm black and shit. You know what I'm saying? Now, let's keep it real, right? If you wasn't so-called African American and all you saw was the TV and media, though, shit, you'd be scared of yourself too. You know what I mean? You'd be like Richard Pryor, though. You didn't know you was black and shit. You'd be scared shit. You see a black belt. If that's all you saw was the media, TV, you know what I mean? Listen, I've met Africans, Europeans, Latinos from other countries that really believe that the rap videos, the most corniest shit, the blue screen rap videos. I'm not talking about like in front of the bodega, heist life, you know, the nice life. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about those Rome streets, right on the block, Eddie Kane. No, I'm talking about rappers in front of the blue screen. You know what I mean? The fish lens. You know what I mean? The fish lens videos. You know, in the studio. They thinking that they think that's real. You know? I said, how you like it here? You know, you came to get the knowledge of it. You know, I'm still a delusion. You know, like I thought it would be a little bit more. This is happening to me in my own classroom. It happens less because the internet is educated a little bit more, right? But before the internet, I used to have people from other countries come to our school, famed and honorable and exalted as it is. And they're like, yo, these streets, man, they ain't like the videos, man. They thought that they'll walk through the streets, though, and, you know, on a sunny day, they could see the hoes, you know? Word is bond. You know what I mean? They said women they don't dress like that all the time. You know? I said some of them, not all of them. In fact, not most of them. You know what I mean? We look at a large amount of them because they're all beautiful, but they're not all scantily clad. You know what I mean? Shit. Don't you just see people riding down in fucking dope whips and shit? And, you know, when they stop, they, you know, they just chill. And then, you know, some chick is, you know, twerking on the side, you know, just for fun. You know what I mean? It's nothing to do exercise. You know what I mean? Some people, you know, some neighborhoods, they take out a jump rope. You know what I mean? The hood, they just, you know, they just twerk randomly. You know what I mean? This is what they thought. That's what they thought. I said, what video are you talking about? They named some cheesy ass video. I thought they named some gritty video. I could at least say that is real, but it's not every block. You know what I mean? Okay, you know what I mean? But shit, the most poppy stuff. Gotta laugh, man. Gotta laugh. Oh, man. That sounds good. Picture another smoother blend with less initial kick that both bodies are talking about. Okay. I could get with that. Okay. Saladin, so build on things we have in common with each other. Warrior culture. You know what I mean? The oppression is extremely similar. You know what I mean? I mentioned that book, The Making of Asian America. They have dealt with significant slavery that is crucial to continuing the money flow. That if it had stopped right with the abolishment of slavery, though, would have ruined much of the industry of America. You know what I mean? The creativity. You know what I mean? Study the creativity of the Asian cultures. You want to know who's also like you? You're a creator, Saladin. Study the nature by which other people create. You know, me, like others, my brother Infinite Mind, definitely on an even more extended, we had the opportunity to train with, you know, Shaolin monks at times. Him for an extended period. Me for like 1 or 2 times. I've trained with many Asians to do the martial arts. I've been in ciphers of many Asians doing music, creating things, making things. People are more similar than they are unalike. You know what I mean? And that's why when you're around creative people, you have more of a chance to find the righteous. Why is it that the majority of people that are righteous, that are grafted, we saying grafted, they're white? Why is the majority of them that are righteous, they usually end up being creative? Why? Because their whole soul way of life is to spend time to look within themselves to make something. And so they engage in the activity that we have that has created the entire world. And so they start to understand creativity on another level. That it is not just a building block to make a song, to make some words put together, to make something written, but that it is really the building blocks of creating something better than what was there before. The knowledge of build, destroy. Do you know the knowledge of build and destroy is creating? Knowledge, build, born. The science of creation is knowledge, build. Have you knowledge, the science of build? Look at what they create. Look at how they create. Don't just look at the way that they act, the way they behave. Look at the way that they adapt. Right? Do we define a people by their savagery? Do we define a people by their greatest creations? Do we define a people by their institution? No, we usually define them by what they have given to the world the most. This is why we have such negative definitions of the European, because they give given death and destruction to the whole world as a prerequisite for them to build. They have destroyed, and all of the opportunities to build are only after they have destroyed everything. They wrote wonderful novels. They wrote wonderful things. They made societies, right? They building blocks. But it was only after they destroyed everything else. It was only after they used everyone to reach those states. And so they are criticized, rightfully so. And that's what we say they have as a collective, a grafted reality. Do you see that in the other original people? Do you see devilishment of that nature? Because we could find devilishment everywhere. You know what I mean? We can find devilishment among all societies. When you're looking at the commonality of anyone, you're looking at the nature by which they create, the world around them, the world that they present to us. What you present to the world is your first creation. In other words, your nature, who you are, your righteous name, like Karende. Your nature is the first creation that you present. You have named it Saladin. You've named it Self I Build, Peace to the God, right? You have named it Sunez Allah, Son, Savior of the universe. Now shows and proves the equality of zigzag zig. Son is Allah. This is your first creation, what you will present, how you will present yourself to the world. What follows then is what? Right? What else can you, the supplemental, what else can be formulated to present to the world? And how in each form. So how will I write and let that be another presentation of me to the world? How will I rap, spoke, verse, sing, and present myself to the world? You learn the arts though. How will you move to present yourself to the world? You know what I mean? This is the way you find commonality among people. Your creator. It's the only commonality that anyone can have with you. Do for self visuals, peace. You say today's supreme math is knowledge, build, destroy, all being born to born. How I see it is knowing how to build and destroying the correct way by adding on to my ideas. And that's how I make knowledge born. Fair enough. And that's how I manifest a determined idea by applying and focusing. Fair enough. 7-9-30, you said it's all a big continuous story. As you spoke on the Coolies, Bruce Lee writings that his daughter brought to life in the series, Warrior touched on a taste of that, as well as some being enslaved in the Caribbean in the late 1800s. The more you learn about Asian people, the more you learn about Chinese people, the more you respect them and don't see people like Bruce Lee as an anomaly. Moria Shiba, that they had constructed societies where the martial way, the martial abilities, as a philosopher, as a thinker, as a writer, as a fighter. In other words, a culture of presenting oneself uniquely within the confines of styles and ethos and principles that are correct. We just know those styles, ethos, and principles that are correct. As say the Wing Chun, it has to stay within bounds. You know what I'm saying? But everyone will do them different. You know what I mean? Not everyone doing the same, and that becomes their creative reality. And someone else may move a certain way and be able to put that on paper as well. And some are able to apply the feelings and the nature of that mentality to how someone can engage in all life activities. And people like Bruce Lee, the truth was The reason he was taught to be a scholar. He was taught to be a philosopher, taught to be a thinker, taught to be a reader, taught to be someone that made notes, because it was the common culture. It's why when I teach the martial arts, I expect everyone that I teach to be a thinker, a philosopher, a student of the ancient text, not because the peak Bruce Lee's, the Moriya Shibas did it, but because it was the common way. When you see excellence and supremacy on that level and understand that it comes from societies of people where that was common, then you're starting to see that the genetics were fulfilled. Some people, they only want to see stuff and they just don't look right. But what happened about original people when they were stripped of their language, stripped of everything, and there was nothing to see? How were we original? See? We don't teach about what we're seeing from a people only. We teach about what they are. Now, if you need the proofs of the capabilities of these original people, that's fair enough. I get it. But it's a lower level of thinking. The original man is the original man based on the genetic level, the black, brown, yellow. All of the phenotypes of original people are based on the travels and the environmental realities that include the nurturing, the foods, the environments, and the activities that they engage in that are different, and the creations that were made that were different. So that if the people we find have lost all knowledge of themselves and even learned and even succumbed to the beastly way of life, we still would know that they are original people, because we go to the genotype and we know what is grafted and know what is not. And we know that even though they have been grafted, even we know that they are living a beastly way of life, we would know that that is not their nature. Case in point, we talk about this crabs in the barrel mentality of groups of original people, right? Are we not doing the same at moments? Who we decide to teach, how we decide to teach, what are the bad justifications? I mean, the best discrimination that you should have of who you share with, who you teach, is the possibility of whether they'll learn. And so the greatest bigotry you should have is based on age. The babies are the greatest. That is the greatest bigotry that we have. I didn't mention 793 Rashidi, Ranoko Rashidi here though, but I'm sure that's me and him have butted heads, and me as some random individual, you know what I mean, that he didn't like what I said, so I don't talk to him at any level, you know. Self I build. You said with self-awareness, knowledge, I have been able to construct, build a better life for myself and slowly dismantle things that are not beneficial to steadily bring about, born habits that are truly productive, like truly borning, right? Yeah. Okay. Interesting history, 793. Rome, you said don't live out another person's insight, live out your true insight that you believe, know, and understand. Don't listen to people's judgment, but learn from people's judgment by being divine and civilized. I see it. I'm gonna have to watch that Funkorama video again. It's a great song, man. That's Aaron Hall, right? He's singing in the chorus there, right? Funkorama. You know, writing so much about new music, I don't get to enjoy a lot of classics as much as I do, you know. Mm-hmm. Um, if you haven't read about Bruce Lee's life or his books, the Be Like Water documentary is a perfect introduction. If you studied a lot about his life, you'll know most of the stuff in it. But it has wonderful footage, so it's so much fun to watch. You know what I mean? And it's great to see. So it's great for everybody. You know. And when you get to collecting the works of Bruce Lee, the books that he has written, that have been compiled of his writing, what it ends up happening is that 80% of his books are not about fighting; they're about philosophy. You know, we only talk about one book. That's why people don't know that. Talk about the Jeet Kune Do book, which I think is probably the most useless book for the average person because it has too many fight techniques and fight diagrams and stuff. If you're not a fighter, you won't even understand all that stuff. Okay. 793rd, you said, I drew up a point you made when you dealt with him in the past. Yeah. Aaron on the hook. There were like 2 or 3 video shots during that time. Highlighting videography. I can't wait. Yeah, I'm one. I love most Red Man material, but my favorite has always been There Is a Dark Side. Really, I didn't know. So a different short. I never seen that Be Like Water short. I've seen the documentary, but I didn't see the short. Yeah. But either way, if any of you want some books from Bruce Lee, please ask. You know what I mean? You don't have to go look for them. I have them. I'm willing to share them with you. You know, so also this book too that I mentioned because I think we really need to learn about the history of our original peoples. You know what I mean? We don't know. We have to get to the point where we start admitting that we don't know shit. You know, um, when it comes to things, we make our assumptions about people though so poorly. You know, and come under the name of the true and living God of the universe. And you know, we don't even know the people who we verse about. That's funny, right? Okay. And it's I find it even more irony that I see so many 5%ers or people coming in the name and saying that on a day like the knowledge build, when we should know the duty of a civilized person. It's the irony of that is peaks of hypocrisy. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Something like that. Yeah. That's my favorite Redman album. You know, I love it. Most people pick, honestly, most people pick the 96 Redman album. What was the name of that? Muddy Waters, you know? And that's a great album though, but that's it has a simpler formula. It has the basic tested and true Eric Sermon formula musically. So um yeah, so I don't find it as challenging as There's a Dark Side, but I think all the first three Redman albums are must haves, you know. If you're a collector, you gotta have those. You know? Random question for Quartis. I have is, where does planning come into play? Is building related to planning, or are they one and the same? Or do you need one to do the other? Is planning more to do with the knowledge degree? Learning how to do what it takes to achieve a particular thing. Well, look, sometimes you're acknowledging how to build, the nature of build, the nature of creating. You know what I mean? And planning is a lot in that because there are steps to creating. You know what I mean? So we don't notice it or we don't talk about it as planning, but everything is planned. You know what I'm saying? If you just get ideas out, like if you're making a piece or writing a piece, or whether it's a song, article, or anything, you are still planning. So even in the creative, what seems to be the most creative aspect, you're still planning an approach. Do I get these ideas out, or I think about what ideas need to get out? You see? So, you know, acknowledging the build is in the plan, you know what I mean? And if it's really in tune, you've already figured out the mathematical order. And that's why it doesn't seem like it's part of it, you know? Yeah, grandma was right though. That There Is a Dark Side is filthy. Oh man, that's funny. I'm glad that made sense, Quatis. You know, everything is planned because there's an order to execution. It's just sometimes it's lots of times in creation it's unknown to that person. That's the part that's unknown, so it cannot be replicated again. And people have difficulty creating again. You know what I mean? And for some reason, the more that people learn about the process, sometimes it can inhibit them. Like because they give themselves too much structure or they get too robotic, you know? Like for example, um, when RZA started to learn how to read music and how to play music because of its because that added more structure, meaning more planning in how the music is made. I think it actually inhibited him, especially in the beginning. You know what I mean? I think what inhibits him now is not musical knowledge, though. It's basically like the forms of knowledge. But that's another story. You know what I mean? Hmm. In relation to what you've been building on is the notion of survival of the fittest at the root of nature. Are all living organisms followers of this law? I mean, when you study more, even people like Richard Dawkins that bear witness to it, it's not a linear process. You know, people, not everything that should be evolved to gets gotten rid of. Like, you know, things that are unnecessary in the body or things like that. Not everything gets rid of. You know what I mean? Um, so survival of the fittest has much to play with things. You know what I mean? And the development of humanity develops in such that where you develop the things that are greater because that's the process also of building. You know what I mean? Um, but it just doesn't always happen on a linear fashion. You know, could there ever be a system developed that inspires excellence and abilities on one hand, and every other prevents thrusting humanity in a state of surviving against or from one another? These systems like capitalism definitely will not. It will not be found there. Systems like socialism that are so misunderstood because it is not based on people getting everything for free. You know what I mean? That's not what it means. Um, it means that people it only works when people are in a state of willing to thrive. If they're content with survival, the society crumbles. So a peak socialist state depends on the integrity of a well-educated populace. And that's why Cuba lasted so long, because that influx and infusion of massive education changed the way they thought. And as times got more and more difficult, people got thrust into survival because of outside forces and you know the blockade, um, and even the bureaucracy of the said state and you know mistakes that would come about. Because now when you got that blockade and you're the only socialist country with very little means already, you can't make a mistake, and a mistake was going to be made. So people started to see the things that they wanted and wondered why they don't get what they wanted, and then they see manipulators of the bureaucracy that have been constructed having things that they ought to have. And so now, even though that there are past the level of um, risk, That's a good way to put it. Risk. You know, you lose your job in America. You know, you're most people, majority of people are at risk of homelessness. That's not going to happen in Cuba. You're at risk of being very poor, but you're not really at risk of losing everything. You know what I mean? And as it got more and more difficult, and there is less to guarantee to people, and then there's less of a willingness to thrive, people's mindset got lost, and education seemed like a wasteful thing. And you see the uneducated, they see the propaganda works, and they see the uneducated. You know what I mean? They see the so-called uneducated or not as educated as them now, radicalized in America, and they're balling. You know what I mean? And now somebody that sings stupid ass jingles like Pitbull is a Cuban that is living a good life. And like I said, the assumptions of the way, especially rappers, they have projected, pop rappers have been assumed to project the reality of a people. You know what I mean? And it is projected itself to the actual pop rap. There is very little distinction to most people, right? So people see that and they really thought like, yeah, I should have that, and they don't know that most people would like to have some of the stuff that he's flaunting, but he ain't really getting that. You know what I mean? The truth is that a society that truly works has to be experimented with. I really agree with Noam Chomsky when he says that the right society is going to have much more socialist nature than it does capitalist, but it has to be something that is experimented in, that the people decide, and that the people, go through trial and error with. Could there? It seems as though Quartis, you say, until a great level of morality is shared between individuals, communities, and nations, will get acts of greed, aggression, and prejudice continue. What is this 5% role in this? Without a knowledge of self, there is no extended humanity. There is only protection of those that you have put alike you, that preserve you, that you could see would best preserve you immediately. See? And that's why the knowledge of self, and this is why I berate people that say they have a knowledge of self, come in the name, and they'll say things like, well, the Asians didn't do shit for me, so I don't know why I gotta support Stop the Asian Hate. I get you. You don't want to go march. You don't want to go do shit like that. You weren't doing shit like that anyway. For Black Lives Matter or anything. But when we see things like this, we have to look at ourselves and say, listen, what are the things that I do that's not right and exact when I deal with Asians, though? Have I really been loose-lipped with people? You know what I mean? Right? Start, violating and hurting Arabs. We go, no, they're basically half original, blah, blah, blah. They start giving me science that they don't, and history and shit. The truth is that today's African American, though, lives a life that is easier than the average Arab that's out there, especially in the Gaza Strip. So it's about, how can you make a society that could challenge any of the hells that are here if there is no morality, no ethics? And this is why I talk a lot about the Cuban Revolution, because they, at its idealistic best, had the quest and the goal of using their means of education, of unifying people based on the levels of ethics, morality, increasing by the amount of education that they learn. In fact, Fidel said that with an increase of knowledge comes culture. How is that not mathematics then? And that's what he meant, though. It didn't work out, but we have a model. At least one that we can compare and contrast and think about. But no society will be built. You know what I mean? No society will be built without a higher level. Mr. Jarrell, you say self-preservation is the first law of nature, right? Instead of looking at it as the first, look at it, instead of first, say lowest. Because the original man, theoretically, if all things considered, isn't really preserving himself. Theoretically, because he has no set birth record, he's always here to thrive and can always coexist in all the environments that he's in, as shown and proven. So nothing in nature can corrupt him. It is the nurturing or denaturing of lifestyles that he is living, succumbing to, suppressed, and oppressed by that causes him to reach that lower level of self-preservation. Right? So it's the lowest law of nature. A law of nature that at a peak, we're not even supposed to inhabit. See? But when the mind is dissatisfied, all else fails. Will our efforts, Quati says, reach the level of other great modes of philosophical and societal contributions? I don't mean in notoriety, but in momentous change in human interaction, direction, activity. I don't know. I don't know, Quatis. Daily, I just say that this is the format that I got the truth in. That's how I see it. I got the truth of the true and living God, that I'm the true and living God, that my babies are the earths, that the black woman is the earth, that the black man is God, who the black man is, who the black woman is, right? Who the grafted man is, though. Who and what can be civilized people. What are the constructs of a righteous society that we could strive for, that we could build? This is the format by which I got it, though. And I've already had formats of expression like hip hop and other things or whatever that I learned to express myself with and via. And so that's just the way I'm doing it. I don't know if these are the greatest modes. I know that of what I've learned and what I've seen, though, these teachings are the most direct that I've ever seen in this day and time. And I would like to think that the way I do hip hop is some of those direct motherfucking ways to get it out there. You know what I mean? And to throw it there and to, even if it doesn't teach, something else seeps in, a reality. You know what I mean? So, who knows, man? And so can we inspire that great renaissance that heals and adjusts this apparent flow in nature? I think that the fact that this knowledge continues is already a renaissance. You know what I mean? Cannot destroy it. And that to me is impeccable. I'm amazed every day that this knowledge itself is still being taught. And I'm grateful for that. So many prominent people took to Marxist pronouncements, Quatis, because Marxist wasn't advocating Marxism. He even said Marxism is not Marx. Like, that's not me, It's that Marx was defining the relationship that everybody saw. And so he saw the cycle of destruction that nobody else was noticing. He said that there are means of production, ways that things are produced, and that there are owners of the means of production and a labor force that actually does everything and creates everything using those means of production. Because the owners own the means of production and enforce that, the massive labor market that actually makes the production with those means of production, the machines, whatever it is, the farmland, the tilling the soil, whatever, they are always controlled. And there is a horrid cycle that at its worst peaks, shows a revolution of those laborers, those proletariat would take over. But unfortunately, Marx was also pessimistic. And he said that those proletariat would take over the means of production and themselves be those owners of production and be as vile and as preserving minded of their exalted way of life as what they just toppled. So he didn't really have a Marxism as they said. He just defined it, and I don't think he saw it. It was the most bleak picture, but it was the definitions and the relationships of laboring humanity at the turn of the Industrial Revolution. I mean, that was it. You know? Especially now that not just original people were slaves, but now the average white person, especially the ethnic whites, those who are passing, like Italians, those who are at the lowest levels of respect, like the Irish, they were seeing all this, you know what I mean? And suffering all this directly, you know what I mean? So socialism is breeded out of those concepts and say, well, how can we do it where the means of production is owned by the proletariat, but the proletariat doesn't become like that? And so they have communism that's a transition for that. So they would divvy up everything righteously. You know, a central system that would be with integrity. And you see, it's so abstract that it's almost impossible to fulfill. You know? And we have people that are weak and wicked that are doing that. All you see is what Marx said repeat itself. The proletariat take over the means of production and become those owners of production that have just been as dastardly, I should say dastardly, as those who had it before. Sounds good, Albert Alamo. I'd love to see that. Send that link or something. I'd love to know what it was. I love documentaries. Well, the Indian farmers have been going through that for years. If you research one of the great earths, I call her the Earth. She actually has a university called Earth University. I've heard her speak in person, and one of the most mothering voices and beautiful women I've ever seen. Vandana Shiva. Her works are crucial. Look her up in it. She's so well spoken, such a builder. She has documented this for years and years, the plight of the Indian farmers, and really the creation and the sustainment of GMO isn't really in America, but it's also in other countries how that has manifested. You know what I mean? You know? But definitely study Vandana Shiva. Look her up on YouTube. There's a lot of discrimination even among our own people, especially those that claim they have knowledge of self. Yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? And that's why I speak. I start first with the gods because you got this knowledge and it's embarrassing. You're embarrassing yourself. You sound like a savage. And instead of sounding like God, you sound like Musa blowing up your own people at the top of the mountain. They can't be taught. They act like they're not like us. Collect them all, blow them up. Quatis, I have many books about the Cuban Revolution, so just email me and I could send you a whole bunch of stuff. Right? There are many reasons, you know what I mean? Many reasons, you know? Now remember, a revolution is a complete revolution. Real simple. The oppression in Cuba before Fidel was monumental, blood-sucking at a monumental level. And their segregation was so similar to America that in the early 1900s, Remember, Fidel takes over in 1959, right? In the early 1900s, 1910s, 1920s, Cuban musicians that came to America actually decided to stay in New York because they felt it was less racist in New York City than it was in Cuba. Just let that sink in for a while. You know? Some heavy shit. So this is the world that, this is the country that Fidel takes over. When he takes it over, he doesn't take it over as another dictator to replace. So America's not too happy about that. They thought he would be like that. He wasn't. They were hoping to be like that. Oh, he just wanted to be the dictator. Right? The piece of shit. He'll just do what we say. But he got rid of all the American institutions, Chase Bank, everything. Nationalized everything that was foreign, owned by foreign hands, not to America's liking. I mean, Cuba was where they were experimenting in the first versions of multinational corporations, and the crime syndicates were laundering their money through Cuba. He got rid of all that. But what also happened is that he redistributed everything amongst the people, which means that he also redistributed things that the people own themselves. So people that owned a lot, sometimes even some land, businesses, pieces got shifted. And so if you was upset that some of your stuff had to be shared, you either get with the program or you get out. So I might have these 20 acres, let's say, of farmland, and I'm like, nah, I own this, man. I own this whole farm. I ain't giving it none of these workers here. Nah. Just get random, like, it's crazy, right? It's like you got 20. Well, you're gonna have 5, and you're gonna till it yourself, and these 15 are going to the people. Now think about your way of life. You got 20 of them joints, and now you got 5, and you ain't got you got to do it yourself now. Just change your whole lifestyle. So what they do, they take their money and say, I got this money, I'm gonna leave. You know what I mean? See, we could always talk about blood money and stuff like that, right? But who's really willing though to take the goods and the things that people actually have out of their hand and say, we're distributing all this stuff. If you don't like it, that's just the way it is. See, it sounds harsh, right? It sounds messed up. So, I understand why the Cubans would have left. You know what I mean? Now, we don't have a problem with that, tell you the truth. Americans here are a bunch of hypocrites. What Fidel did sounds horrible, and it has some horror to it. It is vastly, violently changing people's lives. And at the same time, though, no one has any problem, though, when an Olympics comes to a town in that country and they say, all y'all get to get out. Nobody has a problem when a couple of folks say, we're going to put a ballpark here, right? Put this stadium here called Barclays Center. We're going to have little tiny little restaurants and selling spots inside that'll be named after streets that we're going to go through and take people off those streets because we're taking all this. You see, we're used to big bank taking little bank. But Cuba sounds really violent because you saw little bank taking big bank. But in reality, little bank take big bank. It take almost all the other bank in the middle. See? Little bank can't take big bank. Little bank take all bank. And figure the shit out itself. See? Like Robin Hood, though. He steals from the rich and gives to the poor. He's not he's taking a whole bag. He's not leaving anything with the rich. You know what I mean? And when he gives it to the poor has now become what? The same as the people that had something. The middle. And they're like, wait, I worked hard for this, so you just gonna give them people that? You know what I mean? Just think about how people would find that offensive. In fact, even the way I'm saying it, though, you might find it offensive. You may be like, I don't know why Sunez is even talking about this Cuban Revolution. Right? We talk about revolution, but who's ready for that? Right? They thrived in Florida because they had their money. They took their assets with them. So there was a lot less that Fidel had to spread around in reality because they left. He had the physical land. You can't take pieces of Cuba and take it with you. So they would always be mad, but they definitely took the wealth with them. He could tear down a Chase Bank, but you don't tear down the wealth of Chase Bank by destroying a building. You know what I mean? You stop them from blood sucking you, but you don't take away the wealth that they already robbed from you. You can't get it back unless you fight them and go. And he couldn't do that. He just took over. You know? And they were supported. That's why Cubans have automatic citizenship, seen as refugee status immediately. Totally different than any other brown people. You know? And many of those Florida Cuban population that we're talking about is a right-wing community that has done acts of terrorism that have killed children just to make a statement that Fidel's Cuba is evil. Like the plane that was set to go to Cuba with the Cuban national, I think it was a soccer team of youth. And one of those anti-Castro Cubans, because it's particular, it's centralized to a demonic figure. And here, Castro. And they exploded that and destroyed that plane of children to make a statement. Was it the work of a lone crazy? Surely. But years later, that same terrorist lives in Florida still, lives in Miami, Florida, and is heralded. Tell me that's not some type of sick breed. Some sick shit. And you go on the other side, you try to find the children that are said to have been killed due to Fidel's quest to revolt, success of revolution, and continuing a revolution. Can't do it. Indeed, Joel, self-preservation is that base, though. See, but that doesn't mean that we would be at that base even by birth. Think about cross-reference in your head if you've ever read it, Isis papers, and her ideas about how we were naturally inclined with the environment. We always could adapt. We are not in conflict with the environment. We have a way of understanding nature, how to coalesce and blend with nature, how to use it, exalt it, manifest it. Again, I mentioned Vandana Shiva. These are things that she talks about. You know what I mean? This is why they always exploit, because we still know how to till the soil. The black, brown, original women still know how to till the soil in a way that the grafted in the white corporate structure of mass farming has not figured out. Still. Hakemi, you said many Cubanos left Cuba because they wanted that white picketed fence and greener grass. Preserve it, certainly, because they had that. Plus, many had businesses that were being confiscated by the government. That's right. Indeed. Sun God, peace God. That's you, huh? Okay. Okay. Oh, that's P.E.A.C.E. Self I build. That is the number one cause of discord among Cubans is the redistribution of everything. You know what I mean? The number one cause. And the Cubans that are in Miami, that foundation of society, the truth is that they're a legacy of bloodsuckers. You know what I mean? A legacy of bloodsuckers. Um, no problem. It's not cutting the bills, son guy. Um, when I will be back in Mecca, all right. I expect to be back in a law school in Mecca regularly April 8th. Okay. Okay. Again, just so people know, I've been teaching from here because even when I went back to the school, a lot of 2020, I ended up being quarantined for large periods of time, though. Um, just because I was around family that was around the virus and things like that, right? And the times I went back to the class, teaching at a law school, I teach anyone who walks in voluntarily. I have had to change that. And so it is not the same. And yet, so many people contact me to go for the first time there. So it is very difficult for me not to teach strangers. The interaction between potential students and students I've already had was causing a learning environment that was not comfortable for the students that I already had. You know what I mean? And so I started outside of the classroom as I do and teach those that really wanted to send them online. And of course, we're in a different world. The young students that we're going for, they all should be inclined to deal with this form. And if they're not, though, then they are backward and we need to bring them up. It is unacceptable to me that young students that are getting this knowledge, you're bringing a young, they should be internet savvy, watching a stream like this or watching the videos after and being able to take notes are something that they should easily be accustomed to do and be willing to get accustomed to do. They should be willing to learn to use digital libraries and construct their own digital libraries. Okay. Many of the students that I'm teaching, many of you are older, and many of you say, I like print copy on that. A lot of that don't mean shit. Your preferences have nothing to do with what the children need to do. And the young need to advance themselves. They need to learn how to use these massive computers to build up a small, portable educational facility and a creative easel with this. That's what this is for me. It is a portable educational facility and my creative easel. I have written books through it. I have access to over 1,000 books through it. There are, even when there is no internet, there is at least 1,000 books. Excuse me, at least probably about 200 books I have access to, even with no internet. Access to all my music that I need to listen to, which is at least 100, I don't know, 100,000 songs at least. I mean, I don't even know. I don't even know. Should be more. I wish I could put more. You know, the apps don't let you put more, but it's enough, right? If I'm outside, it's enough, right? I'm selfish there. But I could stream. The point is, though, is that that's why I was okay with teaching the class online. And I'm saying this because if you're older, you need to know that the way that you like to learn is no longer the way to learn. Okay? The way that you like to learn isn't the way that the students need to know how to learn also. You know what I mean? We have to teach students that's willing to go get it, but they're going to be willing to go get it through the digital mean. They have to, even if they go get it street to street, walk to walk and get there, they still need to learn they need to know how to continue to learn and absolutely learn through these digital forms and use these digital things. You know what I mean? It's absolutely necessary. The truth is, I'll accept nothing less from a student of a certain age. You know what I mean? If you're 30, if you're 35 and below, I'm not trying to hear you saying, "Oh, Sunez, I don't really want to read books like that because I like to have the physical copy." Do you have money and the space for 100,000 books? Because that's how big the collection be. My collection is about, I don't know, 2,000 to 3,000 maybe books. Do I have the facilities? Do I have the space for 3,000 books? My work is as a hip hop journalist historian. Do I have the space for thousands of albums that I have? We have to learn how to use this technology. I barely have the space, if I was to put it, for all the things I've written. I would have to seriously modify my entire living situation if everything I wrote was actually right now put into print. I would have serious space issues. I'm talking about the stuff that I wrote. Okay? And just because I love paper and pad, right? I always keep my journal physical. You know, I keep my physical as it's a fun thing to me. You know what I mean? But even I have, those are already like, you know, 2 giant boxes already. I'm on book 60. I mean, and the truth is I started doing that in 98, and it's like maybe about 10 years I wasn't really using the journal. The point is these are some of the reasons why I was okay with just teaching it online. Because I want to, if it makes you, oh, I can only do it online, I guess I can't go to school. No, you absolutely can find a way to get online. You can find a way to watch this. You don't have a laptop, you don't have a computer, you find a way to watch this. Every single app that I'm talking about is free. You don't have access to music, you download the free YouTube music app. You don't own the music, but you could search and listen to anything you want. You don't have a place to write and put your writings. You don't have a journal. You can't even afford a paper journal. You get that Google app, the Google Docs, and you label it journal. You put the dates and you write that journal all in that one document. It gives you infinite space. I know, I've tested it. This cipher here of learning demands that you, the student, do things above and beyond what is expected to show that you are about this knowledge and that you can fulfill learning this knowledge at a level that can somewhat try, it cannot, somewhat try to equalize going to the school and learning or being out there in the street learning with someone. It cannot equalize it, but it can honor it though and be just as valid. And truth is that even if you're out there learning it that way. Old school, right? Just as I said, there's a place, and I go out of my neighborhood and go into other neighborhoods I never went, and actually stay there and learn and find out what people do. And I had already been accustomed to that because my work was as a journalist. I had gone to all types of hoods just to get a story. You know what I mean? When I wrote about NMC, I was in their neighborhood writing about them. In the South Bronx to write about said person. In here to write about. In Bed-Stuy to write about said person. You know what I mean? Neighborhoods I don't really know all that well. You know what I mean? Out in Queens. You know what I'm saying? I went and got the story. And I get lucky if I get somebody to come with me that takes some damn pictures back in the day. But even if you do that route, the classical route, the most revered, it'll always be, should be. This form, though, of learning in this way and being able to utilize this, not as just a play tool, but having a discipline to not scroll timelines on social media and take all the notifications off and use it as a book. Use it as a device to write. Use it as a device. There's so much you could do with that. Because if someone had told you, look, all the benefits of a computer, you could just take it with you and you could do all the things you need to do everywhere you go. And yet we have that and we're not using it. We're using it for play. That's unacceptable in this day and time. So for any of the young students, though, this is mandatory. That if you even come to learn with me physically and meet me, you still ought not to miss a class. You still ought to be figuring how to read the books I give you and not say, well, I don't know. I like to read them physically, so that's why I didn't read it yet. Nah, man. No. You adjust. You know what I mean? Self-I-bet you making people mask up and sanitize. It's a tight spot. You know what I'm saying? I think that people I think it's right if it's too crowded in there, you know what I mean? And that's why I don't think it's comfortable. I don't to be masked up and talking in a small space for 3+ hours. And the truth is that if anybody was infected and we were all masked up in that small space, if there were infection, we would get infected because we'd be there so long that the airspace would all be compromised and relay and pass around anyway. You know what I mean? Quatisu said, how close was Occupy Wall Street? I worked near Occupy Wall Street when that happened. I was on Cortlandt Street. I used to work on Cortlandt Street. Zuccotti Park, I'd walk up out of my job, walk up one block over, and it was Zuccotti Park. A real revolution, I thought that it could be a great awareness of real worthy demands. You know, that, and I would go there. I would do the knowledge. I saw indigenous groups. I saw indigenous groups educating indigenous natives, Lakota, all that beautiful stuff. You know what I mean? And Lakota people have beautiful culture. You know what I mean? And seeing different Black groups, even African groups, you know what I mean? Brothers, proletariat groups, Marxist socialist groups, they all felt like, like we're all going to express ourselves here and bundle up here. But there was one spot, and I guess I found it because on the way to Zuccotti Park, right? This is the whole park. Let's say like I'm going here to the whole park. This whole thing was the park. But I'd get here in this one area here at the tip. I'd sit there and I'd notice that a lot of the whites, though, they would get there and they'd be talking. And I'm like, you know what? I want to do the knowledge. See if they're saying some stuff. And they're devising what they think ought to be the play. They've already taken ownership of the way it ought to go down. You know what I mean? Like, we got to do this and we got to do this. And I'm thinking, like, y'all making decisions for the whole cipher. I don't see representatives of the whole cipher in here. I don't see any black and brown in that. It's almost like we took the college kids that were mad about college debt and they were just talking like, what should we do now? Da, da, you know what I mean? They're not ready for no revolution. They're not causing no revolution. What they are is militants. You know, just like I think it was Kwame Ture said, a militant is someone who hollers and loudly against the government or against the said government and is appeased very quickly once his demands are met. But a revolutionary wants a change to the entire system because he knows it would always, even with amends and demands offered and given, its entire nature is corruptible and would soon corrupt again because its nature was not about and its structure cannot support the liberation of said people. In this case, the black people, right? The original people, right? And after a while, you could see the changes in Zuccotti Park with the culture. You know, one day it's all these original people. Yeah, it starts to get a little corny. You know what I mean? They get into ciphers though, right? They don't have training though. Their ciphers aren't really strong. Like they don't know how to even do a cipher. You know what I mean? But they're not letting the people that know how to do this. I'm not people saying the original people because they're oppressed the most, but they know how to make familial bonds. They know how to engage. They know the elders of the cipher. Now it's just young white people without structure that want to just engage, and they don't know what the elders want. They don't know how to institute or engage the people that have really been oppressed. You know what I mean? And so it's just all like fodder for them, added fuel, but not really, you know what I mean? They're not really caring. And after a while, the culture gets diluted. And I knew it was over though. It sounds funny, but I knew it was over when I walked one day to work. And it wasn't because they was giving cuts, you know. I guess, you know, they're giving cuts, you know what I mean? Haircuts and shit. You'd see that. They were living there. But I'm seeing white folk with all the cliches that, you know, once I see white people playing tambourines, it's over. You know what I mean? Revolution's gone. You know what I mean? You see white people playing tambourines though. Now it's just them reliving stuff that they could tell their kids. You know what I mean? I was tough. I was in the Zuccotti. It's their Woodstock. It's a little tougher. You know what I mean? And sure enough, it was diluted. So they realized, look, it's these white kids fooling around now. There's no black and brown in there. There's nothing to raid or anything. So one night they just go in there and they say, look, y'all white kids got to go back to mama. Got to go back to papa. And they take all this stuff and they dump it all. You know what I mean? Cops clean it out. You know? You didn't hear about nothing hatred. You didn't hear about people getting killed. Really didn't hear about that because it's a movement that never moved. If you judge it by black and brown original, it never moved. You know? It was just about a lot of white kids that weren't getting the advantages that they were expecting. And it was very shocking to them that they were expected to have some type of play in life. And all of a sudden, they're going into life with a debt. Like, how dare you? You know what I mean? We're ready to gentrify and we have debt. You know, you want to give us the keys to, you know, we want to take over neighborhoods, things like that, but we got debt. You know what I mean? How dare you? You are the 1%. You think that they got that out of the blue? You know what I mean? You really think that they made up the 1%? I said they're the 1%. They the 1% of the money and stuff. You think they got that? Some of us that got knowledge or are getting knowledge, you have no idea how many revolutionary movements gods have been involved with. Yeah. It was about their cause, And whether it worked or not, I can't say. But it was over. You know what I mean? And they have a story that they could tell their kids. You know what I mean? I understand your rebellion, Joshua, but that's not the way to go. You're not going to do that. It didn't work when we were doing it. You know what I mean? Self-ability, you said I could definitely see it being uncomfortable with people, regardless of one's viewpoint on the virus. I think the respect for another person's personal space is important. I don't like the mask, but I use it. See, that's the whole thing. I build. You know what I mean? I want the student to be uncomfortable regarding the challenge of learning and being expected to perform. I absolutely want the student, and this is something for you to realize when you teach. I want the student to absolutely be comfortable in the safety and the success of the forum. That he'll be challenged to the bitter end. But every moment that he's in it, he knows deep down that if I don't get through it, I'm not going to get the add-on I need to. Or if I do get through it, and I know I could get through it because there is something to get out of it, and I'll be better for it. That's when you have a safe environment for learning and with the right challenges. You know what I'm saying? And it's unnecessary. You know what I mean? Because if I ask students to go to the class, I'm asking them to go through their daily life, working or going to school, and going places where they have to make sure that they're clean, sanitized, disinfected, careful, respectful to others, and go through all this protocol, and then add that on and say, I got to go through the same protocols and add an extra hour, extra time, extra traveling through the MTA system, which is never clean enough. It'll never be clean enough, even though it's remarkably cleaner now. But some stations look like total trash. They don't know how to. It's like they don't know how to fix it anymore. Like Chambers Street looks terrible, and that's Manhattan. They don't know how to fix it. But to ask them to go longer traveling and defending themselves from unknown toxins, that is a stress that I don't need to give to the student. And I don't think it's something that I wanted them to go through. You know what I'm saying? Because our school at best is a place for all to collect. You see ciphers at law school. But if you really do the knowledge, and I keep it real, and all of these, they might not like it. I mean, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? No matter what people say, even people that had the knowledge longer than me haven't been there doing what I'm doing as long. And a law school, if you're really, really teaching consistent there, you will get many, many strangers. And most of the ciphers that are in there have not been strangers. And they could be taught outside of the classroom individually under their means. And with all the responsibilities I have, and I could do it, then others can do it too. You know what I mean? But what does it look like a school that is not always under the greatest protocols? You know what I mean? is all volunteer. Everyone that builds at law school is volunteer. Could have a day where it just wasn't up to par, where a cleaning was forgotten or couldn't get someone to clean it. You know what I'm saying? It's real. It's very real. Every time you see something done at a law school, it is something voluntarily done. And yeah, Quatis, the tambourine. Oh. Yeah, you know. When it turned it looked like I felt like I walked into a Mamas and a Papas video. It was like, what is going on here? You know what I mean? It looked like those, you know, those old cartoons and shit, you know. Yeah, you know, it was crazy. It was crazy. I was looking at, you know. Quatis, in regards to what informed your pedagogy, the questions students ask and your will to be able to answer those questions crazy or mysterious or thoughtful as they might be, or is it just part of the process of doing the knowledge thoroughly and taking on the title of porridge teacher? Honestly, the teachers that taught me knowledge, me, Savior Knowledge, Firstborn Prince, Infinite Al Jamar, Demar Wadi, Firstborn Al Jamal. These are teachers of, you know, Big Bro, Dark Him. These are teachers of incredible natural talent, abilities, experience. You know what I mean? And so many more. I just named some. You know, I'm blessed to be taught by so many. You know what I mean? Right, Law B. Hey, the naming goes on and on. And I think that what has informed my pedagogy the most is just having an empathy, trying to understand people's lives that I don't live. See, a lot of times a 5%er teaches well because he's lived a life that people live. It's not only because I didn't live a life of crime in the street, but it's because I saw the results of crime at such a different vantage point. I saw it in the streets through hip hop and then covering hip hop. And I have so much experience talking to people about their life experiences. That's the work of a journalist. So you end up having to understand people's lives. It's a great activity, listening activity, learning how to listen really well. And if you can't empathize, then you can't ask the right questions to uncover their realities. And that became a natural talent, but it also became a talent that I learned how to foster. And it serves me well and becomes part of the natural talent I have in teaching because I'm able to find out people's lives or what they think, what they need to know. You know what I mean? What they would like to know. And I spend a lot of time trying to learn as much as I can. The lifestyle of a teacher is to continuously and voraciously learn because they love learning. It has been that is an obsession. You know, I absolutely love reading. You know what I mean? So and of course I love writing. So I think that's what informs the pedagogy. You know what I mean? And any type of question I receive, it's okay. You know what I mean? Because every single thing a person says will clue me into what they are or are not about. Um, if the question doesn't reflect the person, then it's also showing that they have not been able to express themselves. So that is telling. Everything is telling me something. You know what I'm saying? right? And you don't have to have all the answers, though. The best type of teacher is the one who can direct you to the answer or a way of answering, because that's what they can always guarantee. You said, but to build the curriculum in such a way that people can see the lesson in it, or that guides step by step and unlocks a will to understand what's being shared, and at the same time exposes them to the infinite possibility of learning, is quite a different thing. It is, you know what I mean? Yeah. Not always easy. When you say it like that, it sounds hard. I think everyone is realizing Self-I Built says BLM is in the same, Black Lives Matter, right? Is in the same tambourine style revolution, no real substance. I see BLM though, if I was to try to define them usefully and not think of them as vile or blood-sucking, I would see them as more as a propaganda movement, you know what I mean, of ideas. And that's why they get that's why they corrupt so easily, because their ideas were really led by, you know, trans women, and they were trying to equalize the validity of that movement with the entire spectrum of all Black people, you know what I mean, and the oppression going on, and it's just not, you know what I mean, no matter what they say, it's not, you know. And it's funny that the empathizing abilities are extremely weakened because they're at odds with what they're doing. The truth is that I haven't seen the success of any LGBTQ trans movement or awareness. I haven't seen any success in their platforms without a small or blatant modicum or large amount of devaluing the masculinity, the nature of Black male masculinity. You see? And sometimes their defense of Black men getting killed is almost a way of saying, like, Black men are also weak and we are the ones to speak up for them, because you see less and less Black men speaking up. You don't see any, very rarely at the highest levels of Black Lives Matter, you don't see Black men as the speakers, you know what I mean? And you never see in any of this movement now, led by BLM and anything associated, or the repercussions of it to all other movements, because they are so massive in influence. No one builds anymore as a crucial foundation in their build that the destruction of the Black man ruins the Black family. Because today's millennial education of recategorization and refocus, right, has actually taught that the Black family is whatever you say it is. See, if you're going to say that you could be whatever you want to be, you could be man, woman, you could be a woman, you know, you be whatever you want, anything, like fuse it all, whatever the fuck you want to be, right? It also means that you have to admit that the family structure is also as trans as the reality of the individual. See, and that's the thing. You can't teach an absolute of any sort without dehumanizing the core Black family: man, woman, child. Black man, Black woman, Black child. You cannot do it. You have to equalize it some way and say that whatever other type of family is just as good. And the truth is, it's not. Child is made via man and woman, and father and mother united is the highest form. There are all levels of humanity, but we're not talking about humanity live and let live. We're talking about humanity that continues to thrive and continues to develop until somebody shows me some new genetics of how a child is created. Then you're not going to change the realities of the development of the child being at best by a mother and a father united. But it's okay, right? Because women, mothers and fathers, both of children, they'll break up the home, right? Fathers were the culprits, main culprits, right? Not being there. And they say it's okay as long as they got, I'm still in their life. It doesn't matter. I don't have to be there, right? Then women turned it on its head, said, listen, I just need money from him. So he could just go. I'll deal with him through the courts. Give me the money. All I want. He's good enough. He's good enough in that fashion. He can see his kid every fortnight. That's what it is. Every fortnight. You see your kid every fortnight. That's good enough. And it is not good enough. It'll never be good enough. But it's okay, this lack of unity, because what? The reality of freedom is trans. We flow with the wind, whatever we feel like doing. And man and woman united, as father and mother, as to put it simply, husband and wife, whatever you want to call it, running the household as the guiding forces of a child, giving the entire spectrum of humanity from mother and father, is no longer seen as the highest peak. Because if it is being seen as not equality. See? Equality doesn't mean sameness. Their equality and the equality that America talks about when it's convenient is about sameness. It'll be the same. See? And so it's okay to destroy the family structure, because all family structures are good family structures. All family structures are good family structures. Now, some are impaired, some are not. Right? And the truth is that our children, right? They are adjusting, and we are allowing them to adjust to trauma. That's what's happening. When mothers or fathers say, look, it's okay, we could just do whatever. Like, we could be separate like that. You know what I mean? People assume that everything, it's real easy to categorize science and say everything is a role. You know what I'm saying? Everything is a role. And everything that is genetically real in a person is just a role. But the truth is that there are things that you are, and then there are roles that you play. You see? And we live in a world where people are willing to play a role. And now it's okay for people to look for a role their whole life. That's what that movement's been. The supporting of people looking for a role. So no one says, look, they're killing these black men, we're losing fathers for their children. But no one mentions that it's the black family that's getting destroyed, that has been destroyed. Because they're trying to make families that have two moms that think they're both guys, and they're raising a kid. All types of different stuff. This universal flag has man, woman, and child. That's what it represents. So we take a stand. We say that there's a level of supremacy to this, though. Because you can't achieve what you're going to achieve the way you achieve. But it's not true equality, American equality, if people not only choose a different way, but they get to say that their way is just as great to achieve goals that they could never achieve. That they have the right to try to achieve goals that could never be achieved under the conditions that they are creating. Yeah, I see that stuff I build. Yeah, most of their roots are really, they don't have any men at the highest levels. You know what I mean? Is there also a sort of anti-intellectualism? I would call it pseudo-intellectualism, because certainly qualifies itself as intellectualism. That runs along with blurring those lines of family. People want to be whatever they think they can. Personal pronouns being thrown all over. This recategorization is not the product of anti-intellectualism. That would be like Trump and stuff. Um, it's basically, which is bad too. That has other negative effects, but of pseudo-intellectualism, intellectualism that is trying to falsely equalize everything. It's not all equal. You know what I mean, nothing is more higher than the structure of man, woman, and child. Nothing. You know what I mean? I don't care how many tweets try to cancel Sunez. You know what I mean? You do all the fuck you want. You know what I mean? And that takes into account my own life. You know what I mean? Right? I know man, woman, and child together is the most high. We live in an oppressed society though, so doesn't, we even struggle. Because people take on the role of God, they don't want to be the God of the whole universe. Women take on the role of the earth, but they only want to do a little bit of that knowledge culture degree in the 1 to 14. They want to do a little bit. You know what I mean? I'm not doing all that shit in it. You do half of it. You get half the result. You know what I mean? Yeah, adjusting to the trauma though. Let me tell you something, Contis. It's a plus lesson that would be a book that I would write when my children are both grown. Because as a non-custodial parent, meaning I don't live with my children and I see them every fortnight. A fortnight is 2 weeks, right? That's, if I could say, the most consistent way of seeing them. I don't give a shit what anybody says. You know what I mean? My oldest, though, I had to think about calling your child, not seeing them, and you have to see him. You can only talk to them on the phone. You don't even get to look at their face. It seems like less trauma because you could talk to them on FaceTime. You get to see their beautiful face, when you talk to them. But that trauma is real. So we raise kids through straight trauma, a micro trauma of their micro environment, which is supposed to not be, which is supposed to be a strength unit, right? A solid bunker to fight against this entire war of oppression. But it's not. It's a micro trauma. And they have to build up as best as they can so they could deal with everything else. You know what I mean? And the truth is, parenting under this fashion is teaching trauma, is handling children that have gone through trauma. You know what I mean? Because you know damn well that even if a couple had the knowledge of self and then they are not together, though, I don't give a damn what you say. I have never seen where both sides deal with that knowledge of self the same way. Meaning, show me that where both of them dealt with it right and exact. One side is fucking it up. And like I say, just the earth, the so-called earth, or the so-called God. One side is fucking it up. One side goes the easy route, almost all the time. One side says, I'm not dealing with this knowledge anymore. And it's not just that, well, they could eat pork, they eat this, but they could be around 85 ways more. They could embrace 85 ways. You know what I mean? We are raising our children against massive amounts of trauma when the black family disintegrates. And I won't hear of it. That anything but the man, woman, and child is the most high supreme. Everything else is our adjustments in battle. You know what I mean? And we're warriors, though, so we do it. Right? My brother Raja does it. My other brothers, they do it. That's what we do. You know what I mean? Yeah, Raja, I had built on the God degree and the 1 to 14, seeing this as African American. The problem is sometimes when you see yourself as something, you're only seeing yourself as something when it's convenient to exclude someone. You know? How many people say, yeah, we, like, yeah, we're Puerto Rican. Yeah, we do that shit too. Nah, most people usually doing that. Like, we Puerto Rican. You know what I mean? Now we African American though. Y'all wasn't really with us when that was part of the build, Was the power of the black man used up in the 60s? I wouldn't say used up. We could never be used up. You know what I mean? But they found the power, they found the strength of it. One of the most beautiful things that you saw with the Nation of Islam was the black family. Like they were stressing that. What a beautiful look that was though. When you saw Malcolm X out there, and you saw Betty Shabazz, and you saw the children. That's what they were promoting though. That powerful unit. Leaders up to then though the families didn't become famous like that. Like that's just the visual of the unit. You know what I mean? That's why even on some levels though, no matter how like toxic I find Jay-Z and Beyonce, nearly all of their art, nearly all of the presentations and the things that they have done, I find toxicity in nearly all of it. The one saving grace that they have though is that you get to see at least a black family, like this man, woman, and child. And it's their last saving grace, and it's not a small thing. At least somebody sees that and says that is the value of that. The truth is, the way that they behave, though, it seems that people don't see that. What they are seeing, though, is that man, woman, child can only stick together if they have all the money. And so sometimes even that visual isn't helping. We have been really, really, conditioned, negatively. Indeed. Indeed. Very good question. I wonder if the 85 weighs closer to inertia or entropy. Um, I mean, entropy is like they can't do it. You know what I mean? And inertia is like a natural resistance. So, and sometimes it's a combination of both. You know what I mean? The conditioning is so mighty. Be a combination of both. Your guess is as good as mine on that. It's a good question, though. I like the way it's worded. 85 is not evil, right, Quatis? They're based on inconsistency. They're based on inconsistency. They're neither good nor bad. You know? It's all like the Syl Johnson song. Any way the wind blows, it's cool with me. You know? Right. Yeah. Supreme scientist, you say inertia, huh? I don't know. I could say inertia and then they'll surprise me. You know what I mean? Again, though, it's all inconsistent. You know what I mean? Quad teaches that our leaders take it from us. Heavy addicted drugs coming to our computer welfare system, the predatory judicial system seem to scramble life up for us. Yeah, as designed. You know what I mean? As designed. You know what I mean? But if you know it, and you know what is, if you know it, and you're at your peak, yeah. I try to be Quatties, right? If you know it and you're at your peak, right? Then the traumas that are added or the traumas that you have to go through, you only use them as building blocks. You know what I'm saying? You use them as ways, and it doesn't help to cry about your own shit too long if it's no longer crying of identification and analysis. And it certainly doesn't help if you keep crying about how it is affecting the children. You know what I mean? So you analyze it, you accept it, and you adjust to it. But I don't think that I could, for example, raise my daughters well if I accepted that and thought it was okay, because that means, you know, I constantly do not accept it. Even though I know that it is that that black family unit, as I see it supremely, cannot be resurrected. See? And so I deal with the trauma as if it is an injury to the child. And I do my best to repair them so that they are stronger and not accept that injury to themselves as a debilitation, right? Or something that is acceptable to inflict, you know? Right? Yeah. All that, Raja. Yeah, definitely. You know? But we are past 10 o'clock. With that said, man, I hope that, you know, even though I'm speaking with a lot of negativity, that is showing you, you know, to accept these things, you know what I mean? To that you can prevail in these things, you know what I mean? Because even as I raise my children, they have been raised, they have been continued to be raised and continue to build. Despite all this COVID and the adjustments we had to make, though, all you gods and earths that are there are building, you know what I mean? And that is what I think about. That is incredible to me. You know what I'm saying? That is incredible to me. You know? So that's what we gotta do. You know what I mean? Because we got this knowledge to heal trauma. You know what I mean? To heal our own and to heal everyone else's. Right? The first creation is to heal. A creation of some type of healing. And then after that, though, then you really see what we could create, right? But you got to know how to make creations that heal. You know what I mean? Right? Absolutely. But with that said, I'm going to let you all go. Email me, Sunez97, gmail.com. Um, if you have my number, I think Sun God, you didn't have my number, just email me and I'll send you my number. Um, I don't give it up because everybody on this that I'm talking to here, I would like to, but not everybody I'm talking to is who I'm talking to. So I don't everybody to have my number because then I have more stuff to ignore. Right? Go to 5% Media. Right? The last piece I wrote was about blood sucking. You know what I mean? Sometimes we don't think about that and how that actually works, or the nature of it, and a little artistic prose about it. Something to think about. You know what I mean? And if there are any things I mentioned, like Bruce Lee books or anything like that, anything that you want to read ISIS papers, anything that was mentioned, and you're like, you know what? I got to go buy that book. And you say, listen, it's going to be a while before I buy the book, or I can't. Doesn't matter. Or if you know what, you won't want to buy the book because you want to, you want to buy something else, or you get the book from me and you could buy a different book, 2 books. That's what I'm here for. So email me, ask for these things, utilize the resources and references that I have, you know what I mean? And all the other brothers in here, you know what I mean? Get to know them, get to know your classmates, you know what I mean? This is your history, And if you don't want to read, though, I guess we'll be watching the Snyder Cut and spending all our life watching that. That better be good, right? Because I think I'm going to spend some time watching that too. You know what I mean? By the way, since we talk about programs, I'll leave you one. I love the program Mayans, but if you're a follower of Mayans, they have a new introduction to their show, right? Mayans MC. And it literally shows you much of the oppression that the brown man, specifically Mexican, has gone through, including even the gentrification of LA, the savage gentrification and displacement of Mexicans in LA to build Dodger Stadium, among other things that they show in there, right? Including this forced segregation, all that. So, since we're talking about that, I'm not an audiobook collector, Raja, so I don't have any of those. I like to look at words. It's a thing. If I don't look at them, I can't write them, right? But yeah, like that's like love with the lights off. I'm gonna see everything. You know what I'm saying? I want to see everything. All right. Well, with that, I'm gonna let you go. The intro to Mayans MC, the series, this program, right? The footage in that intro is very, very telling. Great show. But with that said, stay healthy, keep creating, and build. Okay, knowledge the way you build, so that way you can continuously and mathematically continue to born. Peace.